Proclamation of the Holy Gospel according to John. Jesus said to the crowds, "Everything that the Father gives me will come to me, and I will not reject anyone who comes to me, because I came down from heaven not to do my own will, but the will of the one who sent me. And this is the will of the one who sent me, that I should not lose anything of what he gave me, but that I should raise it on the last day. For this is the will of my Father, that everyone who sees the Son and believes in him may have eternal life, and I shall raise him on the last day." The Gospel of the Lord.
Our gospel passage for this All Souls Day is taken from St. John, part of the Bread of Life discourse. We have been reflecting on hope, hoping in God for eternal life and for resurrection from the dead. It's always a question that has intrigued humanity in its history. What happens after death? Will we be reduced to nothingness? Does life end in oblivion? When we are not seen anymore, will we be forgotten? These are mysterious questions. And so our Judeo-Christian faith, by celebrating this day, offers us an aspect of Christian life which is hope. In the first reading from the Book of Wisdom, we have the special case of the just person who is put to death by enemies, probably a violent death, a humiliating death. And the world may say, what a waste of life. The world will say, especially the enemies, look, it's not worth it. It's not worth fighting for the truth and justice. You will be put to shame. You will be reduced to nothing. But the response of the first reading is no. They are at peace. They have hope filled with immortality. And it is a gift of God. Someone who lives in union with God, living by God's truth, justice, and love, will never be abandoned by God. You may be abandoned by others, but not by God. And so you remain in communion with God, and that is eternal life. In the second reading, St. Paul tells the Romans why hope is true. Hope is true because we hope in God. God who has loved us, even when we are unfaithful to Him. God who even sent His only begotten Son to die for us, to embrace all of us, in order by His resurrection to offer new life to us. So St. Paul is saying, hope is true because God is true and the love of God is true. Those who hope in God will never be deceived, will never be disappointed. Other people may deceive you. The promises of this world will disappoint you. Only God is true. Now, this is affirmed by Jesus in the Gospel. Jesus talks about Himself as the bread of life. And in this particular passage, Jesus talks about the will of God. It's rare that Jesus talks categorically about the will of God. And here, in two instances, He talks about it and provides wonderful paths to approaching the question, what happens in death? Is it just nothingness? Is it just darkness? First, Jesus assures us, and I use this especially when I go to wakes, when I go or to services for the departed, or when I preach. When someone dies, the loved ones experience a tremendous sense of loss. We Filipinos would always say, wala na siya. He or she is gone. And with the person who dies, many other things die. I remember a friend of mine saying, when her mother died, no one will be able to prepare pancit noodles the way my mother did. No one will welcome me at 5:30 in the afternoon when I get home from work. With the passing of one person, many other aspects of your life seem to die with a person. And so we say, he or she is gone. And many aspects of my life have gone with him or with her. But Jesus says, it is the will of the Father that no one be lost. No one given by the Father will ever be lost. What a beautiful assurance. No one will be lost. And Jesus follows it up by declaring that it is the will of the Father that those who look to Him, those who see Him, the Son of God, and believe in Him, will be raised up on the last day. Why will the departed not be lost? Because by looking at Jesus, believing in Him, that person experiences now not just earthly life, but eternal life. And the will of the Father is that those who believe in Jesus, possessing, even here on earth, the seed of eternal life, will experience the fullness of that eternal life in what we call the resurrection from the dead. Jesus tells us plainly, it is the will of the Father. The Father that St. Paul talked about in the second reading. The Father whose love is supreme and total, and so we can depend on Him. The Father who will not fool us. The Father whose love for us generates new life in us. Our love for the Father in Jesus Christ, in the Spirit poured in our hearts, that love is stronger than death. Death will not cut, will not stop that communion. That communion is life, true life. So, my dear brothers and sisters, as we remember our departed today, let us remember them not only for the things that they have said or done. Let us remember them in hope. Remembering them, we hope in God that they now experience eternal life and may be granted the gift of the resurrection on the last day. And let us believe that we are hoping in a God who will never fool us, a God whose love could not be doubted. In Him we have life. Now, in Him we will have renewed life in the resurrection. If only we look to Jesus and believe in Him. Let us begin it now. Now we experience eternal life. One of our tasks, ministries as priests, is to visit the sick and to be called to, attend to people who are facing the sacred moment of death. I remember an elderly woman who was a good Catholic, a good member of her parish, and her sickness led her to calmly face death. But in my last conversation with her, this valiant woman of faith and hope entertained one question. And it was poignant. Whenever I remember it, I have goosebumps, and also quite sadness in my heart. A sadness that brings joy also. Because she said, "Father, when I am gone, I'm sure during the first weeks, my children will visit my grave, and I'm sure the weekly visit will turn to once a month, and then will become once a year. And then maybe they will forget me. Not seeing me anymore, I will disappear. I will not be part of their lives anymore." I felt sorry for her, but something arose from my heart. I was not expecting it, and I told her, "Don't worry, I think your children are very good children. They will never forget you. But should they forget you, remember, there is someone who will never forget you. God. You will be always alive in God. And that's the only thing that matters." And she smiled and squeezed my hand. May the Lord grant her eternal rest. The word has been exposed. Let us now fulfill it.